Welcome to the MarTech.org podcast.
Awesome. Well, welcome to the Take Your AI Beyond Content Creation Coffee Talk. Thanks for joining. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's MarTech sessions. If you missed any of the sessions, you can enjoy them on demand by accessing them through the agenda. I'm Craig Schinn, co-founder and COO of a consulting firm called Actable, and I'm here with Michelle Simone, a principal at Pepper Foster Consulting. Now, just a heads up that this coffee talk is being recorded and will be available on demand. But we do look forward to hearing from you all during this chat. So please chime in. Of course, you all are welcome to unmute, come on camera, stay off camera, post questions to the chat. I just ask that once we get into it, if you all could raise your hands before you talk, that would help us to kind of keep the conversation organized. We have a couple of polls, and we kind of have a planned flow to the conversation. But of course, this conversation is going to be organic, so we'll see how it flows. And thank you to the MarTech team for having us.
Yep, thank you.
All right, so Michelle and I wanted to kick things off with a poll to get a sense for areas of artificial intelligence that you all might be excited about. Now, for those who aren't familiar with taking polls in Google Meet, I was not prior to this. There's actually a button in the bottom right-hand corner with a triangle, a square, and a circle. If you all could tab over there, there's kind of in the middle of the screen, at least on mine, there's a section called polls, which highlight on it, and please complete that poll for us, and we'll get a sense for where everybody's coming in.
Great. Got some votes coming in. Gen AI, deep learning, robotics. Great.
Give it another minute. In case you missed it, bottom right-hand corner, triangle, square, circle, there's a little area called poll.
Awesome.
Yeah, this is pretty good representation. It looks like the select all that apply didn't work. So this is kind of a select one, and we'll see which ones kind of turn out. But in this horse race, it's turning out, I don't know, Michelle, for you, this is a little bit like I expected it to be. We're talking marketing technology and what areas of marketing technology, where does AI help out the most? But yeah, certainly when Michelle and I were thinking about what we wanted to talk with you all about today, generative AI and machine learning were at the top of that list. So
absolutely.
Thank you. Yeah.
This is great. No, and it's interesting. Computer vision wasn't chosen just yet. The image recognition, facial recognition, biometrics. There's a lot more conversation right now about Perplexity, GPT. So it makes sense why Gen AI is the one that's being voted on.
Excellent. All right. So given that, we're talking about generative AI and machine learning, we'd love to kind of talk about some of the use cases that you all have. Now for background, the Actable business, we focus a lot on helping brands leverage, deploy, analyze, organize, activate their customer data. Commonly, those are machine learning use cases. Those are use cases where we're thinking about churn prediction, propensity modeling. But generative AI is so key when we think about marketing technology and how we drive experiences. And I'll start off with a recent example I had for generative AI, which was I wrote an article for MarTech that I'll post into the chat here, where I'll be honest, I was really struggling to write this article. I had some ideas that weren't flowing from me, so I tried to leverage generative AI just for some inspiration, simply with ChatGPT in this specific case. And there's two versions of this article in this link. One that I actually wrote that came from my brain, and another one that came from AI that helped unstick some areas of some areas where I was maybe stuck. And from an individual perspective, I found that to be so transformative. Michelle, any examples from you more recently?
Yes, I think clients that we're speaking to about AI in general, the use cases are within the HR realm. Definitely speaking to people about how to start a baseline of creating job descriptions, how to then iterate on those job descriptions and help Gen AI really get to, say, the DEI criteria that you're looking for, the mandatory requirements, but do it in a playful or in a way that really resonates with the audience that you're trying to bring in. So definitely HR. The other side of it that we're talking to people about is customer service. So having that chatbot, having that responsiveness, having that that 24/7 interaction and engagement for sure is the two use cases. HR and customer service seems to be the two areas where AI is being discussed, and it seems to be that more tangible, hands-on applicableness, right? We work with clients with creating a template on how to leverage Gen AI to truly get the content that you're looking for, because putting it in there, it takes some iterations to really understand the tone, the format, and the output that you're looking for. So those conversations of how to leverage the tools is definitely a common conversation.
Yeah, I'll pause there. If you all want to raise your hands and get in line, I saw one person here has come off camera. Any comments that you want to add to that, or recent examples that you've encountered with, I guess in this case specifically generative AI, because it was the leader in the poll. All right. Well, I'll as you have areas where you want to chime in, please raise your hand inside of Google Meet. We can get a queue going, so that way we can all weigh in, and if we increase the number of voices, I think that will let us help keep the conversation focused. Well, transitioning a little bit, Michelle, I gave actually a presentation yesterday at another conference, a vendor that we work very closely with, a close partner of ours, and I was asked to talk a little bit about machine learning specifically. And in preparing for that presentation, I did a lot of background reading from the big consulting firms and see what research that they had, and it was quite interesting. McKinsey's and IBM have actually put out a lot of great content in the artificial intelligence field very broadly. But what I found very interesting was among respondents to a McKinsey adoption survey, something like 35 to 55% of brands were reporting cost reductions from AI initiatives. And then this was across industries, was that range. And then for the revenue increases, 55 to 65% across industries were indicating some sort of revenue increase. But at the same time, as we've made all these great advancements with AI in our daily lives in the form of LLMs and things that we might be leveraging in our tool sets, we haven't seen enterprises adopt artificial intelligence as much as you would think at like an enterprise level. And I'm curious, Michelle, at Pepper Foster, if you're seeing that trend bear out.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like, so I think the leveraging of Gen AI is more tangible, more user-centric. So I feel as though that's the first lever, whereas ML brings in a whole other conversation of data strategy. It brings in a real understanding of what are my data sources and how do we clean them up in order for ML to be a conversation. It also brings in another conversation of data governance. What is that? What are the tools? How do we really not get over our skis, but within the compliance space, like there's so many conversations that come to the foreground with ML compared to Gen AI, right? So I feel like those conversations become a lot richer And you need to have that technical arm of, a technical team, a technical architect to truly start sifting through those ML discussions.
Interesting. Yeah. And thank you to Tom and Amy. Michelle, as you were speaking, we had a couple of chats come in. Tom mentions testing out AI automated blog post creation. I'll make a comment on that. We have tried that ourselves at Actable, certainly. And I would say that it is a work in progress, but I think the more you can give it, we use Jasper on our side. And Jasper is great because you can kind of give it brand guidelines and you can train it on your existing corpus of content. So it absorbs the tone of voice that you had written content in previously. And you can't just hand it over to Jasper, but it does actually do a nice job of embellishing and creating depth of content that would be perhaps when I write the content, I perhaps am glossing over things that may not be obvious because I'm so close to it. Whereas Jasper actually has helped us to write a little bit fuller content. You can't let it do everything for you. Jasper, I believe, under the hood leverages Google Cloud's Vertex product, if I understand their architecture correctly. So there's certainly promise for content creation, and one of the things I've been thinking about doing is recording videos, just shooting myself talking, having that made into transcripts, and then having the contractors who help us with marketing divide that up into snippets of content, and all aided by speech recognition, speech to text, and then some of the great editing tools that we have to chop out any filler words, which I think AI can do now.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are, I think the tool that I've been gravitating towards is Perplexity. It seems as though, even though that's not specific towards blog posts or towards a specific type of content, it's been helpful to formalize an approach of things, to try to get the right tone, and just like that quick snapshot of a format that I can leverage and then iterate on. It seems to be the tool that's been working for us.
I want to also get to Amy's chat here. Amy says, on a different angle, I've been thinking about AI features in each of the main MarTech platforms we're using to focus on building awareness and clarity on what we can do then within our governance. Now, that's actually what this challenge, Amy, is what kind of made me start to think about the article that I posted in the chat earlier, where it's a little wild because on the one hand, generative AI is such a breakthrough. It's a breakthrough capability. Like the way, I don't know about you all, I mean, the field has been around for some time.
Correct.
But when you first interacted with ChatGPT-3, and you're like, oh, this is different. It's like a language. It felt like something new to me in the way it was responding to prompts. I think that's why we saw such massive adoption to it. But at the same time, the barriers to entry to build AI features on top of an open AI or Google's tooling are the two that I'm most familiar with, are not very high. So as such, we've seen such an explosion of these sort of features in marketing technologies that it becomes really hard as MarTech leaders to think about, well, where do I build this in the cloud? Do I leverage this in a tool set? Right. How do I govern this? And that I think is a pretty big challenge right now. And I'd be curious if you all are having similar experiences to Amy, if anybody wants to weigh in, via voice or put in the chat how they're thinking about that governance between these AI capabilities that can actually create experiences in many cases, and how you all think about governing them at your organizations.
We've had to start with initially those AI guidelines, right? Of what you can do and what you can't do, what you can share and you can't share. Those basic guidelines for sure, if you're going to be, understanding how to leverage Gen AI, have those guidelines. But as well, there's a lot of YouTube videos. There's so many videos that can really get you that literacy of understanding the differences between AI and Gen AI and machine learning, deep learning, right? So that governance, that literacy, if you're going to start dipping your toe into the conversation, I would definitely take some time to, within that learning and development plan, understanding what the tools are and what the challenges could be.
Yeah. So I.
Yeah, and hi, it's Amy here. I can just add to, I think, what we've seen in our team, because we do have a lot of different stakeholders involved through like maybe content operations, for example. Getting that literacy of through that chain is challenging, so that like everyone's on the same page. So making sure we have like tent poles or like milestones of like where we've captured approvals when AI was used in the creation of the content, and actually communicating that to the customer so that we're really clear on when we may have used that. Like I'm thinking more like imagery or things like that. So we can still remain on, true to our brand and, not have any missteps here, since that's very important to us.
Absolutely. I think that's a good call, Amy, because the transparency of what, you're leveraging the tools as a companion, right? So you want to be transparent with the leveraging of X, Y, and Z. So I think that's a good call of that being part of your guidelines.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you're also kind of disclosing where generative AI was used in end user facing experiences. That's cool.
I think Google's just come out with some recent information on that. I don't know if anyone else has seen that, about how they're going to maybe start to require some of that.
Thank you for that, Amy. I'll have to research it, but that does sound like a kind of a missing policy.
Yeah, I think that's it's actively being determined right now how they would communicate that. How that would be displayed, things like that.
That's great.
Any other comments? Claire, I saw you come on camera. I don't intend to put you on the spot, but I wasn't sure if you were going to weigh in with a thought there. Yeah.
No, I just was a little late coming off my last call and joined, and I always have my camera on. So.
Oh, awesome! All right, I'm sorry to call you out. Well, welcome.
Welcome.
Cool. Well, I would love to, for a moment, transition when we think about use cases. Just touch briefly on machine learning, because this is one I've been surprised. Like ML feels so mature to me that it's been in practice for a long time, and they're battle hardened tactics. But I have seen many cases where what I believe to be the co-opting of the field of artificial intelligence by LLMs has meant I've seen more scrutiny on contracts where the words AI is used for things that are really machine learning from legal teams. And I've seen a few like very promising ML initiatives where we think about like LTV forecasting or churn detection, repeat purchase detection, get hamstrung by cautious policy teams because the letters A and I are associated with those. And I'm curious from the group if anyone's encountered anything similar to that recently, where more tried and true forms of AI are perhaps being looked at more closely because of developments within LLMs and generative AI.
I think I maybe have an interesting perspective on this. I work for a company that has a lot of AI within our products. So I think we were kind of in a unique space when our marketing team started looking at AI, where we already had an AI like fully structured organization within our product org that had existed for like 10 years. And so for us, that was an incredible opportunity to really lean on them and understand like, what are the differences between these things? What are there things that we maybe need to flag, that we need to have policies around? And so that was really, really helpful. So I think my takeaway from that is when our legal team was having those questions about like, which of these things do we need to like maybe read a little bit more closely, having those like AI knowledge experts involved in the conversation to say, well, this is what this means. This is what you should be concerned about. Because from our lawyer's perspective, like they're there for the contracts, make sure that the contract is a solid one that works in our benefits, but like they don't have that AI expertise. So That was
Right.
really, really valuable for us to have those AI experts that we could really lean on when we were having those conversations.
Yeah, that's a good call. Absolutely, is to bring in the right people for the right conversation for sure. And with those AI governance, and especially within the legal realm, we try to partner with other entities to have and to facilitate those conversations.
Yeah. I'm curious. So thanks for that, Claire, with that notion of like having those experts in helps to maybe overcome some of those obstacles. I'd love to talk about perhaps some of the obstacles we're seeing toward AI adoption. And I'll give one that I hear a lot. My company helps brands try to make the best use of the data that they have. And oftentimes there's an AI or machine learning project that's a portion of those services. And a common objection I hear is, our team isn't ready for that, or our data is not ready for that. And on the latter, I would challenge that organizations always have some really good, really valuable data that's in a good enough space to get value from it. I mean, I've seen that time and again. And but on the training side, I'd be really curious. Amy, thanks for raising your hand. Love to hear your thoughts on this.
Maybe more of like the just analysis paralysis. Like you can like envision all these great ways of doing it, and then we don't know where to start.
Right. Really trying to get those prioritized use cases is definitely starting the journey of the conversation of what is the business problem you're trying to solve, and then trying to find the use cases and then distilling it, right, to the ones that are the highest value with the lowest lift, right? So yeah, I think it's a good call.
A lot of people have different opinions about that.
Absolutely.
And there's
Yeah.
just so many different stakeholders depending on the use case.
Cross-functionally trying to get that distilled list is a challenge.
And I'm laughing about it, but it's not funny.
No, of course. Absolutely.
Other obstacles folks are encountering when you're trying to get an AI or ML initiative off the ground, and obstacles you might be encountering?
Something that we're seeing, which I think is something probably everyone is seeing, is you have some people like myself who are working on a lot of AI initiatives within the company. And then you have all of the other people who are really not, it's something that like maybe they think they know is coming, but they're not really looking at it from day to day. They're not really thinking about these use cases, so that when we come forward and say, hey, this is a use case that we think would be interesting versus testing, we're finding that before we can even get to that use case conversation, we're having to do a lot of education and training to kind of get the whole organization up to speed. So what we're working on right now is building out like an AI academy for all of our global marketers to kind of get everybody to at least a baseline, so that when we're coming forward and saying, hey, these are different use cases that we've put together to, again, kind of take the onus off of them. So say, these are for SEO, 10 use cases that we're proposing. What do you think? Really just to start that conversation. And then through that AI academy, we know that everybody is at least kind of at the same level having and starting those conversations. And, if they say no to everything, that's great. Maybe they have alternatives that they want to start with, and so making sure that we're not, just relying on them to bring us use cases, that we're also going to them, but we're also doing our work too, and making sure that like they can be an equal partner in those conversations.
No, that's a good call. I feel, transformational change is definitely something that digital transformation, and definitely a conversation within my realm every day, right? But the change management piece is so rich. The comms bringing people along in the journey, the comms about the vision of how you're applying the tools to the future of those, those execution plans, and bringing everyone along within that engagement with the literacy, the lunch and learns, it's vital, right? You can't just send an email out there and say, we're doing this. You're going to lose 98% of the people, or you're going to have people like yourself that are part of the conversation. And then there's a crevasse between you and everybody else. So that real rich change management piece with very tailored, bite-sized chunks of breaking up what you're doing, but distilling it with language that people can really engage with is vital for the success of something transformational. Definitely AI is part of that.
Steve, love to hear your thoughts here.
Yeah, I'm in
Mark, sorry, we have two Steves there, guys.
I'm in the highly regulated financial services industry. And my company, like most companies in this space, are very skittish about AI, ML, anything that has to do with that. We can't even easily onboard internal productivity tools like Grammarly. I think the biggest issue, though, is to not allow any capabilities for automatic decisioning.
Yeah.
Especially since we're on the hook for being responsible for any type of algorithm that's used that may or may not exclude certain people classes. And so we have like regulatory agencies like the CFPB that will come in and say, tell us how your algorithm works. Show us why or how it's not discriminating against certain peoples. And so that's why I think we're slow to adopt AI in this industry, just like we were with cloud-based technologies,
Right.
where we're 5 to 10 years behind the curve.
You know, Steve, I've had the opportunity to work with a number of banks in my role, large and mid-sized banks. And one large bank, we were doing a marketing and technology implementation for them, and the MarTech tool we were implementing had kind of AI everywhere, like content classification, behavioral scoring, the ability to build custom algorithms, and it was also stored it replicated the client's data. And so the amount of hoops to jump through to actually make that implementation happen was, well, we have to build it on a virtual private cloud. Okay, we'll figure that out. We have to turn off all the ML features because we can't have anything that we can't explain. There could be no AI enabled, right? So it became a more challenging project because of those limitations with where some of these tools are at and how embedded it is. But at the same time, in that industry, I mean, that's a must-have. You have to have explainable decisions. Now, where I've seen clients in that space be successful are where they use AI and ML for things that are not a decision about a financial product. So it might be, who to remarket to, who to withhold from email, and not necessarily like a recommendation. And I've seen clients be successful. They're definitely hamstrung compared to like a retailer who can move really fast and has great data. Publishers who have a ton of content about a ton of data about what content people are interacting with. So there are certainly restrictions in the banking industry. Same in life sciences. For us, we're at least starting to see some life sciences companies raise their head a little bit more to understand what can be done. But there's a lot of trepidation for sure.
If I may make one more point. So my security team gave me a tough time to onboard Microsoft Clarity. It's a free product for user behavioral analytics. And basically it operates by conducting user session recordings and using ML to detect dead end clicks or rage clicks, things like that. And so their issue was, how do you know it's accurate? What is their validation method to ensure accuracy? And I couldn't easily answer that. And I think that there's also an issue with how accurate are these AI recommendations that are being made, and what is the organization that's utilizing these tools doing to ensure that it does what it says it does. Right.
Yeah. It's really hard to unpack because as much as you want explainable AI to some extent, they're hard to explain because it's computers making decisions over millions of data points. I've seen clients be successful even in the financial services industry where they can't necessarily explain every data point, but they can look at things like, well, how did behaviors change after the introduction
trends
of the decision? Holdout tests to be able to almost explain it in reverse, but definitely challenges inside of financial services for sure. Any other examples that the group might have of obstacles that they're facing? All right. Well, Karen and MarTech team, we have a poll that we want to introduce, which was more about not necessarily obstacles, but fears around AI and ML, because certainly we, on a personal level, we have opportunities to leverage incredible AI productivity tools. Even as companies struggle to think about, well, how do we deploy this as a company? On a personal level, we see great gains from working with artificial intelligence. But also, when I talk to people, I hear a lot of fears about it. So if we could launch that poll for those who were not in the session earlier, and Karen, this is poll number 2. Thank you. You'll have to click in the bottom right-hand side of your screen. There's a triangle, a square, and a circle, and there'll be a poll there. And poll 2, you might have to scroll down if you still see poll 1. What is your primary concern regarding the implementation of AI solutions in your organization? Starting to see some votes come in.
Yeah, data governance and legal. Lack of data readiness for sure. Yeah, makes sense. The policy, the ethics, data governance.
Kind of a wider range here than poll number 1, which I think speaks how new some of the concerns are with how simple it is to deploy, particularly generative AI these days, and how as organizations we're not necessarily ready for that. Yeah, so data governance. I mean, certainly we had some dialogue about that already. Bias. I mean, I think to Steve Park that conversation when we think about bias and how it's illegal in that field, and you have to be able to strongly evidence that you don't have bias if you are to use it. Then we have ethics and policy concerns. All right.
I think one thing that comes to mind, it looks like data governance and legal is definitely the one, and besides policy and ethics. Know that there are groups that specialize in that conversation. So as you're going through the journey and, your legal team's coming up to speed, there's groups that exist like AIGG, there's groups that are designing literacy packages and within a legal realm that could support those conversations, bringing them in for a workshop, for whatever that looks like. So know that when you're going into these conversations, there are entities, and reach out if you want recommendations. There are entities that really specialize in a couple of these areas. So you're not left to your own devices.
Yeah, I could talk for a moment about governance, and I'd love to hear the thoughts from those of you on the line. I for the last 11 years have worked very closely with customer data platforms, and a lot of the work that we do on the Actable side, there's a tech and data strategy, there's data engineering practice, we have an analytics and BI practice, but we do a sizable amount of CDP implementations and services around CDPs. And for a long time, the promise within that industry was the ability to kind of govern audiences, to govern decisions, and orchestrate between channels. But a lot of that promise has remained unfulfilled. And then when you think about all the AI that lives inside the touch points that actually reach end customers, your ad platforms, your ESPs or customer experience platforms, as they're kind of more describing themselves as, have so much in there that there's a governance question. And then when you think about cloud native artificial intelligence, where a lot can be done by building on top of a cloud provider and perhaps more centrally governing how experiences are delivered. I haven't worked with many clients who really have this well figured out, and I will fully acknowledge that the end touchpoint tools have fantastic capabilities to deploy generative AI really, really easily, like subject line testing, content in emails, ad creative inside of like Google search. So I'd be curious from you all how you all are thinking about that governance between where decisions are made about content that actually gets delivered to consumers. And polls. I'm just going to double check chat here. Feel free to chat or raise your hands if you have thoughts. I will say that the clients we work with have work to do to sort this out. I don't think as an industry we have a great playbook because AI can be deployed in a lot of places. And I think there will be a role for AI in the cloud, where for advanced organizations who build there and then deploy through their channels, and then for organizations who are perhaps less cloud ready, have less support from their data engineering and ML engineers to build, we'll probably be leveraging the end touchpoint tools a lot. But depending on the number of end touchpoints that you have, I see potential issues for customer journey management and the tone of voice if you have different tools making different decisions about what is said to your end customers, who valuable customers are, where people are at different stages in the life cycle. So I think that from a marketing technology point of view, I think that's going to be a really hard challenge for us over the next couple of years.
Agreed.
All right, let me go back to the poll here, Michelle.
Do you want to do the last one? Just because of time, we have 13 minutes, and I'd love to just like open it up at the end for any question that comes up.
Yeah, let's do that. So we thought, this is a great opportunity with a bunch of practitioners on the line to kind of share what tools we're actually using in our daily lives that are helping us. So a new poll, again, bottom right corner, triangle, square, circle. What generative AI tools are you all using? This is tough. I know for me, I use a lot, so it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see where this comes up. Thank you, Natalie. Yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Please feel free to leverage the chat also, as Natalie did. This is a hard one to do because there's just such a
too many.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Claire, Gemini initially we started using when it first came out, and it wasn't as effective as we wanted it to be, but it's going back to it recently. There's a lot of functionality there that can be leveraged.
Yeah, but what was I'll share as folks are ending in the chat. Thank you, Steve. And I think, Steve, you and I are connecting tomorrow, I want to say. So good to meet you here. Yeah, just by chance. You're another Portlander, Michelle.
Oh, nice.
So
nice.
I'll say that we tried to do what I called an AI initiative at Actable. And one thing I made a cross-functional team, and we thought about, we brought in a strategist, a data engineer, a data analyst / analytics engineer. And it was interesting to get everyone's point of view because they actually, it was interesting how the different tools interacted differently. And there's actually, there was a chat, I think might have been Natalie on Copilot. I mean, there's a couple of different Copilots. There's Microsoft's, right?
Right.
For our developers, GitHub Copilot has been hugely beneficial to their ability to do things. I didn't want to bother our engineers, and I had to write a snippet of code, and it was easy, but I was rusty enough that I was like, well, let's see what generative AI has to do. And sure enough, it was ChatGPT was able to write flawless regex for me to just deploy onto a site that I needed to update. Let's see. Let's look at the board here.
I've never used Elise AI. That's a new one.
Yeah, I'd be curious, Juana or others, if you're familiar with Elise AI. I'd love to hear what the use case is and what that brings to the.
Yeah, it's a CRM that uses generative AI to write emails and text messages.
Oh, nice.
So it can communicate with like prospects. Yeah.
Very cool.
Oh, yeah, that's Claire. I see your A/B testing. That's just recently have been starting to dive into that conversation of where the opportunity is. How is that going? Like, is there literacy that's coming out with that A/B testing?
We're really early with it. We just honestly, our team so what these tools do, if you're not familiar with them, they are similar to someone mentioned Synthesia, like AI video generation tools. And specifically for our team, we spend a huge amount of time training that could be spent on other things. So we're looking at building out like a resource hub of training videos that are not just like recorded Google Meet calls at
Right.
And what's nice about both of these tools is that you can go through and like click on, this and that, the other thing, whatever, and then an SOP document is built out at the same time. So you have both the video and the documentation. So huge win for our team. You can edit, the video and the document after it's been created by the platform. So this is kind of one of those things where like, we know it's going to work. We're just not which tool we're going to go with yet. Guide is much cheaper. I honestly can't even say Colossine. Another team at our company has onboarded that mostly for like customer training videos. So it does a lot more than Guide does. So we're kind of trying to figure out right now, do we need the like big fancy tool? Will Guide do enough of what we need it to do? But two, like if it has a higher production value, like will we see more success with the videos that we're creating? So I'm really excited. It feels like an easy win for us. We already have people that are engaging with the tools, so this is just another resource for them. So we'll let you guys know in a couple weeks.
Awesome. Now I would love to hear about that. That's a great use case. And absolutely the ROI of that is and you can change the engagement. I love it. That's great. Mm-hmm. So Loom. Okay.
I'll have to play that on Loom. I know we've used it for a few like product demos. We built an AI product that has both aspects of predictive machine learning, but generative AI in a use case that we found great success with is natural language queries, right? Where you have a marketer who maybe doesn't write SQL but can describe the audience that they want. So we for one of our products standardized the data model so that this way we're using OpenAI for the translation, and it does a great job of writing BigQuery friendly SQL. Nice. So then we take the OpenAI payload and actually use that to write BigQuery SQL to write queries very surprisingly accurately and runs very quickly.
Great. Amy, I'd love to hear a little bit, if you're open to it, about Jira and how it's being leveraged. That's definitely within my realm of something that we work with.
Thanks for putting me on the spot, Michelle. No,
Sorry.
I've just been really impressed, and like with all the things, as I'm the person at our team who's identifying what new features are on these tools and like sharing them with the rest of our team. So I'm like, I've got to like bridge that gap of like, hey, this is what I know. I've done also other roles in marketing, so I know these are going to be most valuable to you. So I'm like pitching almost to our team.
Love it.
And it's really cool when you have a moment where like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like I could see like people getting excited about it. And that's what I had with Jira. That's why I wanted to mention that one. So basically like, going into PI planning, I just timed it right too, by the way. So there was,
especially going into PI planning. Absolutely.
Yeah. And so it's like, oh yeah, story writing. Oh yeah. Looking at all the epic and recommending like what stories should be associated with that epic. That's like all
I love that
here now. And then, and we've been talking a lot about like templatizing more of like processes, and it's like recommending things and, with a grain of salt, looking at them and, even estimating story points of like how much time maybe the stories have taken based on other stories like it. So
I
were
love that.
We used it here in the last few weeks.
I can definitely see like after you fill in that capacity planning and then leveraging that. That's great. I'll have to look at that. I know a conversation about a tool that we're embarking on is using a tool called Workboard, which is kind of the alignment of your OKRs and your where you're driving towards objective wise, and then you have your key results, and you can then align your epics and your user stories to that. So it's a nice place that you can have everything, where your company's going, and then how your objectives align to that and your specific use cases align to that.
I was glad to hear those. Sounds like those AI features of Jira have come along. When they first, I was doing a lot of custom Jira work for campaign orchestration and workflow, marketing campaign orchestration workflow. And I tried some of those features out, and they just were like beta. So I'm glad it's come along, because that's been since they first launched their AI features is when I first started playing with it. So
yeah. It's amazing it feels the release cycle of these tools. It's almost like a weekly. I can only imagine, within each of the tools, the product managers, there used to be 2-week sprints or whatever the case may be when it came to releasing. It's no longer that. It's weekly. It needs to be.
I think that's just the most challenging thing about all this too, the rapid pace of these things. And like, you can't not look at them again. You have to like keep looking at each of these areas. And so what I've been trying to do is just, okay, what are our priorities? And you were speaking to this earlier, what are our priorities and how do we, align with where we keep looking back and like keep looking at that onion as it keeps changing in these areas, so that we're ready. And I've also found it really helpful to just kind of be more in loop with some of our key technologies to like get a better handle on what are their product roadmaps, so we can be ready to look at it again in our work.
And Steve Gellin, is that how you say your name, Steve? Yeah. Sorry, Steve, I think you're on mute.
Yeah, it's Galen. I have to tell everyone how to pronounce it. It's okay. I was going to just chime in. We haven't really talked too much about custom GPTs yet. And you were asking about use cases, and I've got a really good use case. I have implemented the StoryBrand framework for messaging at my last 2 companies. And the first company was just StoryBrand with humans. And at the second company, I found a StoryBrand custom GPT that someone had created. There's a few custom StoryBrand GPTs out there that I tried out. I found one that worked really well, and it did save a lot of time in developing the StoryBrand brand scripts and ideating. We tweaked it before selecting the final campaign and drafting the final messaging, but it saved a lot of time in an ideating, brainstorming phase for folks that are familiar with StoryBrand. So that was a really good use case of a before and after.
Yeah, and Claire's put a chat in. I'd love to have everybody weigh in on that. I know we are running low on time, and this has been really, really great. So as I finish my wrap up spiel here as we come up to 7:50, please weigh in on the chat to help Claire out with GPTs that they really like. But being out of time, this has been such a great conversation. I'll appreciate everyone's contributions here, both in chat and joining us via voice. Thank you to Michelle Simone. It's an early morning on the West Coast here, and really appreciate it, Michelle. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the MarTech.org podcast. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter at martech.org/newsletters.